Okay, so today we're going to be going through the registration process, completing the registration process by now on the client side. So yesterday we left it at just the backend. Um, so we created the backend for registration. Yeah, so I'm going to open the application that this is build. Just make sure the backend is running. Very good there. I've opened the entire project on VS Code. Then I'll open the client and run it. I actually don't remember how this looks. Okay, so this is how it looks. So we had the registration form. This one had the whole gender, date of birth, but I believe I removed those from yesterday's setup. But I think I'm going to return them just so that we can handle the registration with what we had in the. And then does it really matter for our system? Because you have to ask yourself that question. Why would you need the date of birth of somebody who's registering on your system? Um, and for this system, I don't think we need the date of birth. So I'm going to remove this from the client side. So the date of birth and the gender, and just have what remains. So this is pages register. So all the register does is to show the register form. Uh, this is the register form. I see we had an import for header and footer, but I believe we moved them to the layout. Oh yeah, I moved it to the layout. So you have the header and the footer there. So let me remove this imports. Then now this is the register page. It just renders the register form. The reason why I do it this way instead of just having the register form right here in the page, it is the idea of separating pages and components, because a page is composed of multiple components. So, and this is, I think this is something that comes in handy in Next.js, where you have uh, the SSR. So you have server components and you have client components. So some things like forms, you absolutely have, they have to be client components because they have interaction, right? They have user interactions, and user interaction cannot happen on the server. So what normally happens is that you create a server component, and then also for things like SEO, to set up like the metadata of a page, you create them as a sub component, and then for the parts of that page that will have user interaction, you separate them into a component. So that is why I'm doing this. This looks like it doesn't make sense because instead of importing this component, you could just have all of this in here. But that is the reason. It's always good to separate what constitutes the page from what constitutes individual parts. And for this, remember we had the header and the footer here because of, see how it looks. This is the header and this is the footer. So this is what I mean by a page being constituted of um, different components, and then just this one part is what the user is going to be interacting with. So you extract each part into its own component, and then you bring them all together into a page. So here, we're not going to be working on the register page. We're going to be working in the register form. So in order to, for us to, first of all, let me do that. Let me remove the gender and the date of birth. Save that, ensure that we're okay. So you give your first name, last name, username, email, phone number, password, and confirm password. Now, I'm going to be implementing a quick and dirty solution to working with forms in React. I must state that this is not the best way to work with forms. It works, but it's not the best in terms of validation, in terms of feedback, in terms of scalability of the forms. Not the best way. So we're going to be setting up like very manual uh, validation. Actually, we're not going to start with validation. The only validation we have is that you must input the fields, because it makes no sense. Remember, in our backend, we stated that in the model for user that all of these fields are required, and so they must contain data. So the only validation we're going to be setting up is that these fields must all be uh, they must all be filled. So note that what I'm going to be doing is not the best, and there are better ways to work with forms. And there's a if you go to AdCN, AdCN UI forms, you will see uh, this. So the use of React Hook Form and Zod. So a combination of these two things are the best way to, it's the best way to work with forms. So, so this is Zod validation, creating a schema. It's a lot. It's like, it will seem like it's more code, more complex, but then once you get used to working with it, you will understand. Now, for this, we're not going to be working with React Hook Form. We're not going to be working with Zod. So that's just something I have to mention so that you can look into it for future enhancements and improving your skill. But we're going to first make it work. So uh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce some hooks. Uh, the One of the most crucial ones being the use state hook. So we're going to keep track of these input fields through states. So what I'll do is you have different options. I actually haven't written code, this kind of code for a while. I can't remember exactly how to go about it. So we're going to create an object, um, form data, but not a normal object, a state object. So use state form data and set form data. Now remember we said use date returns an array, and that is why we are destructuring this array. This is year 6 destructuring, because this use date function, once it is invoked, is going to return an array whose first element is the value of the state data, and then the second element returned by this function call, this hook, is the function that updates the state variable. So the initial state of this is going to be, so we need first name, last name, username, email, phone, password. So first name, an empty field, uh, last name, an empty field. Actually, this is, now that I mentioned that we need to work with, first implement what works and then you make it better, you make it a bit more optimal. Let me not go this route of creating one object. Let me create multiple state variables for each of these fields. You're going to see um, why you wouldn't do this as you clean up your code, as you refactor. So let's have something to refactor. So I'm going to start this with first name, set first name. Still going to use the state, and the initial value for first name will be an empty string. So we're going to repeat this for last name, username, email, password, confirm password, and phone. So this will be last name. I'll highlight that, set it to last. This will be username. Then after username, email, something I don't have on my VS Code. There's an extension I do not have. Auto capitalize. What is the name of that extension? Can't remember which extension it was responsible for. Uh, can't remember. So that extension will be responsible for, like, when I highlight, um, see this part, I highlight first name like this, and I start typing email. So this will have remained as a capital E, so that I don't have to do it manually. But I can't remember which extension it was. There's a problem with losing your settings. Uh, so email on, then last name, username, email, on password, and password, then confirm password. Set confirm password. So we have those state variables. Again, I have to mention that this is not the best way. I mean, it's going to work, but it's not the best way um, to set up your uh, work with forms. So yeah, um, what we're going to do is, right now these input fields, they're what's called uncontrolled. Okay, they just work as normal HTML input fields. So what we're going to do is we're going to hijack the control of these input fields and have it at the mercy of React, such that when somebody starts typing, um, this value is going to be set by some React code executing. So the way that we do that is by giving each of these input fields a value. So I'm going to highlight all of this, then give a value, and this value will be, let's say for this one, will be first name. The value for this one will be last name. The value for this one will be username. The value for, actually, I think on the backend, for username, I just had it as one. Like the name in username was not capitalized, so I'm not going to capitalize it here. So it's good to have some consistency so that you can send this data exactly as it is, and it is going to be picked up by the backend. Okay, so this is username. Then the email is just email. Then the phone is phone. And then password is password. Confirm password is confirm password. So once we do that, we give a value uh, and see your message, Lawrence. The last name is set last name. L is not capitalized. Okay, let me check. Set last name. The L is not nice catch. All right, thank you. Yeah. So there's that. First name is okay, username is okay, set email, set font, set password, set. Nice. So those kind of details are actually um, really, really important for you as a developer to catch, because I'd probably have gone to use set last name as this, but I defined it with a small L, and that would have caused an issue. And sometimes you might not catch those issues immediately. So it's a good catch. It's a good catch. So it's important to focus on the details, no matter how small these details matter. It's a good catch, Lawrence. Um, so in the form, the moment we do that, right now I'm typing, but then the value is not updating. The moment we assign a value to this. This is something. Remember when we were learning JSX, and we said that when you're in a right now we're in a JavaScript context, but then whatever the components return, the JSX is HTML like code, right? So here we are still in JavaScript, but then this is more like HTML. So if we want to execute some JavaScript code within this code that is like HTML, then we escape into JavaScript using using these curly braces. So this is being executed as an expression, right? Because it's a variable. It needs to evaluate to something. So the value right now of first name is an empty string. And no matter what you do with this input field, that is not going to change the value of first name, because there's nothing in our code that is giving the instruction to this program to tell you that, hey, uh, somebody's typing here, so update what has been stored inside this state variable first name. So until the first name state variable is updated, that is the only time that now we will see something updating on the input field. So the way that we handle that is by now adding the onChange handler. So let me move, and I can just, so what I'll do, because the onChange again is something that is going to be across all the input fields. I'll just do that. Then I will move. Hopefully it has moved all of them to the right place. Yep. So we get, I will add an on change. Why is it not? I don't know. It's not. I didn't autocomplete, but let's see. So on change, what I'll just do is log. I'll just log hey when this value of the input changes. So this is for the where are we? This is for the first name. So I can't see that until I go to the console. So this console, now we see hey. So as I type, we see hey being logged. That means our onChange handler is being executed. And what is the handler? It's just a callback function that is going to be executed each time this input. The moment we added the value like this, we turned it into a controlled input in such a way that, just think of a controlled input as the normal functioning of that input has been hijacked from how it normally is in just with HTML to now being given, the control has been given to React. So now React is in charge of um, setting of the values, or it controls these input fields. So this onChange handler, since this is a function being executed, we can then use this to now update the value that has been stored inside this first name state variable. And the way that you update state variables is not by just setting, so like you can't do this. You can't say first name now equals something else. You can't do this for state variables. And I believe when we were covering state, we mentioned why, because for state variables, remember, the explanation could be a bit long actually. The rendering. Remember these components, they undergo a life cycle, right? The components will mount first. And what is to mount? It is just to be rendered initially. And what is to render? It is this function is called. Once this function is called, these values have been set, right? The first name, we've given its initial value to be an empty string. So once that value is set, that is what is going to be shown over here. If we set this value as, let's say, oh, this is just first name, so John, John is what is going to show up here. If we set the value here as week, week is what is going to show up here, because that is the value that is initially assigned to this state variable. Now, updating state variables is not done directly like this, because if you want, now the value of first name does change, but then what doesn't happen is that this component doesn't re-render if you update the value like this. So the only thing that triggers a re-render of the component is using the set, the function that is returned by useState. It's called a set function. The technical term for it, this set function. Okay. This is the function that you call it. You pass a value to it, and it is going to update the value of first name. And once that happens, and this is the most important thing about these functions, is that they trigger a re-render, so that now the new value that is going to be stored in first name can be shown on the page. So it's not that the value of first name is not being changed, right? It is being changed. Actually, it's not, because this is a constant. If this was a let, then it would work like this. Actually, what happens when we try now? Yeah. So it will not work because this is a constant. If it was let, then yeah, this doesn't trigger an error as I type. So I'm typing right now. You can't see the value change because we haven't used the function to set the variable. But if we log first name right after this, we're going to see it. You can see its value is something else. And maybe what I can do is just do a math.random math.random, just so that we can see a new thing each time we type. So you can see the value of first name is actually changing as we type, but then it's not changing on the page, because this page, the component, has not been recalled. Remember, component is just a function. This code that is responsible for what we are seeing here was already called when the component was first rendered. Because what is to render a component? It's to call the function, because a component is just a function. So you call it first, and it calculates, or rather it populates every piece of data in that function call. So if we want to show something else on this page, then we have to recall that that component, right? But then this time with the new value of this state variables. So that is why we do not update uh, state variables like this directly. That is why normal variables wouldn't work either. That's why we have to work with state variables. So for this, what we will do is we will use the set um, first name, and now here we can change it to something else. And once you do that, the moment I start typing, shoop, the value of first name changes to something else. But now, as I continue typing, it is still just going to do the exact same thing. It's going to set first name as something else always. So what do? We need to get the value that is being typed into this input field so that that is the value that we can then set on change, right? So how do we do that? Is um, this is an event, right? Remember your DOM, you had events, and with the just the DOM chapter, you will have like the document.add event listener. Um, then on key down or key up or click or submit or those events, right? So on change, we're going to get this event, and this event contains a lot of things. So let us log the um, the event so that we can look at it and we can see what we're going to be getting. And I will clear the console for this. So now when we log the event, we can see that it contains um, these things. And what we are really interested in is right here. See, this target contains a value. So the the value here, the value is what we are interested in. So right now it is set to something else, and I have no idea why. So let us save this and refresh so we can see John. Okay, let's ignore these ones for now. So this target value still John. Oh yeah, that's right. So that is because we've not yet updated the target. So here, initially, first of all, we need to take it back to an empty string. Then what we are going to do is we're going to extract the target and the value from this, and we're going to set that as the new value of first name so that that new value of first name can be the new value of the input field. It's a bit meta. There's some inception happening because we are taking what the user has input, um, which is inside e.target.value, and we're setting it as the value of the first name, and setting the value of the first name state variable is what is then setting the value of the input element. A bit meta, but bear with me. So what we're going to do is we're going to uncomment this. And then instead of something else over here, we're now just going to get e.target dot value. And we save that. So let me comment this for a second. Actually, no, let me not comment it. So what that is going to hopefully do is it is going to get us the values that I type as I type them. So you can see the first time that, so I've typed A, B, C, and D. So the first time that I type it, I come here and I get the value is A, B, C, D. Oh, wow. I was actually expecting just um, to see the actual values as I type them. Because at what moment was this log done? So let me try and think here. What is going on? Am I seeing the full uh, But my expectation is not, my expectation was wrong because the outcome doesn't match my expectation. And the issue is not the outcome. The outcome is doing what it's supposed to do. What happens? So my expectation was wrong in that I thought I'd see A, B, C, D, like being logged. I think what we can do, but from that do the exact same thing. Then refresh it here and A, S, yeah. This was what my expectation was. I don't know why when I log um the entire event, it is showing the full thing under e.target.value. But then when I just log the e.target.value, I get each the progression of how the typing is happening. Hmm. Okay, that's something I'll have to figure out a bit later. So we can see here, let me refresh again. As I type, so I'm going to type the QWERTY. So Q, let me clear this. So Q, W, E, R, T, Y. So each time that the user types, the onChange handler is being executed and it is setting the value of the state variable to be what the e.target.value contains. And once it sets that state variable value, once it gets updated, the component re-renders with this new value. And once that re-render happens, now it renders with the value, with the new value of the state variable. I hope that makes sense. Following that logically might get a bit confusing, but that is ideally what happens. As I mentioned earlier, it's a bit meta, like which value started first. There's just a lot of values going around. So, but ideally, this is how you would, so I'll leave that console log there, how you would update the value of the input uh, field. It is by using state variables. So we'll do the exact same thing with last name. So I'll just copy this on change handler, then highlight this, then paste it there and go changing them one by one. So this is not first name. This is last name. So that will remain the exact same. Uh, is set username. This is set email. This is set phone. This is set password. This is set confirm password, and we are done. So now each input field should work as we type data into it. Okay, so that is how you turn input fields to from just being normal input fields or changing how they work to giving that control over to React to be in charge of setting how they work. So, or rather setting their values. So once we have all of that, so what you're going to then do is handle the submission of this form. So this form here, we are going to set an onSubmit handler, and this handler is actually going to call a function that we're going to define at the top here, and we call it handle submit, an arrow function. Then for now, we'll just log. I just like starting with logs because they help you just see that you the code that you're writing as you're writing it is correct. So we have some errors here. We have to call or rather we have to pass the handle submit as the callback to this event handler. So right now when this form is submitted, I expect that the handle submit is going to be executed. Now remember, in our DOM, so I'm not going um, to go through this so that we can then fix it. For DOM, for the way that forms work, once the data is submitted, it causes as the form is submitting the data, it refreshes the page. So we want to avoid that. So what we do, we get an event over there and then we prevent the um, default. So we have to do that so that we can see this console log. Otherwise, the page will just refresh and we'll see the console log just flashing. So with that, we can click on the submitter and we see form submitted. So that tells me that everything is a-okay. So as I click it, the more times I click it, the more of this console log that I see. So without this prevent default, submitting this form will refresh it. When you still see the console log, you can see it flash over there, form submitted. And if I throttle the network to 3G and go back to console, you can see the form submitted right there before the page refreshes. So let me unthrottle the network. So you prevent defaults to prevent the default behavior of the form. So you call this method to do what the method suggests. It prevents the default behavior of form, which is to submit the data and cause a page refresh. So we don't want to console log, but that is a good starting point. It shows you that the function is being called when it's supposed to be called. So what we want to do in the handle submit, first of all, we just want to ensure that all the forms are submitted. And if all the forms are not submitted, then we're going to have an error, form error, set form error. Now remember, this, as I said, is not the best way to do any of this because I want to just have a general form error that is just going to show on the form, not per input field, but just like you need to enter all data. That is the only validation that I'm going to be doing, mostly because of time. You can see it's already 9. So what I'm going to do is just an if statement over here. So if form validations of a lot of things, because now we need to we need to trim, we need to trim the first name. So okay, I'll just do it. An empty string will be a false value. So we can use the not, but then if somebody enters like just a space, this will fail validation because this is what I mean. Like right now I've entered something, but it is just space. But this is not a false value because remember, false values when it comes to strings, it is just an empty string, and spaces in a string does not constitute an empty string. I mean, sure, it's empty, you can't see anything, but it contains spaces. And so this will be a true value. So this validation will fail. But for now, because of time, I'm just going to use this quick validation. Now, you with Zod, you will have much more. Sorry, I'm not able to multitask. Let me finish typing this. So not email, not font, or not password, or not confirm password. Then we just set the error, um, set from error to please fill all the fields. then we return. We don't want execution to continue beyond this. So let's see here. Once that error is thrown, we're going to show it somewhere at the, do you show it at the top or at the bottom? Let's show it just above the create account pattern. So we're going to show it conditionally. So this is going to be form error. If that exists, and form error, and this is going to be I've forgotten my JSX. So paragraph and form error. We didn't need the brackets. Okay. So form error and paragraph form error. So if it exists, and what I want to do is, this is tailwind, it should be using tailwind. So text red, text red 600, and border red 600, then heading 2. I think that should do it. Now, please fill all the fields. There's a border. Now, please fill all the fields. So when somebody fast submits, or rather the first thing that happens after the submit is we're going to set the form error back to an empty string, then so that it can first disappear there. We won't see it because it's a very quick action. Please fill out the fields. That works. And the other validation, and the only other validation I'll do is for the passwords. If password is not equal to confirm password, then we're going to need to copy that form error. Passwords do not match. So if they've entered all of the inputs, then this will not execute. Then it will come and check the passwords. If the passwords do not match, then this will execute. We also need to return over here so that execution doesn't continue. Then, so let's test it. Let's enter some dummy data. There's no validation going on, so I can use something that's not an email over here. And I know the passwords do not match. Oh, okay, we have HTML validation. So okay, that should pass. Now, so passwords do not match. But if the passwords match, let me do what? Let me just log. All good. All is good. So if everything is okay, then we're going to see all good being printed on the console log. So right now the passwords do not match. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, then all good. So right now it has passed our validation. All our input fields are there. If we submit something without an input, without a value, then please fill all the fields and all good will not be printed. So this one is from the previous log. Remember, React doesn't refresh. It's a single page application. And so the logs will just maintain. But then it clear, then submit. Oh, I was actually waiting for an all good. So you don't see all good because we have an empty field over here. But the moment I add something, then we submit, the error goes all good. And the error is going because we are setting it to an empty string. And we say that the error will only show down here if it is. Remember when we were learning these operators, the logical and, this is where that knowledge really comes into play, because what happens here is that it is the and returns the first word, the first true value or the last false value. So in this case, this is going to be falsy if there's no form error. If it's an empty string, no, actually it's the other way around. So it returns the first false value. Yeah, the first false value. Oh yeah. So it returns the first false value. If this is not falsy, returns the first false value or the last true value. So what is going to happen here, if form error is empty, is an empty string, it's going to be falsy. That is what will be returned. If it is not an empty string, that means it has a value such as the messages that we're setting at the top here, either passwords do not match or please fill in all the fields, then that is going to be truthy, which means it will not be returned here. The and is going to return the next thing that it finds. This is a truthy um, thing, right? It's not an empty string or anything. It is truthy. And even if it was false, let's say we had another empty string here, that empty string is what will be returned. Because if it doesn't find truthy value, it will return the last. These things are even confusing me. So and returns the first false value. If it doesn't find a false value, then it's going to return the last true value. So here, when this is falsy, it gets returned. It doesn't return this. And remember with the and, it's like it doesn't even process what comes after it. The moment it finds the first falsy, that is where it ends execution. So this will not be reached if this is falsy. An empty string will be returned over there. So what happens? This will only be shown if form error is truthy, because in that case, it will not return form error. It is going to return this. And what is this? It is a paragraph that has these classes and that has this value being shown over here. So the non-falsy message is what is then shown on the page. Confusing stuff. Um, so here we get we get the message being shown. We fill everything, the message is gone, and we see all good. Actually, let me try and inspect and see whether as an empty string is not shown at all. So that's form validation. Oof, time was gone, and all we've done is form validation. I think we've covered uh, covered a lot so far. So the next part, I'm going to go a bit quick. Remember, I'm recording this session, so you can come back to it. I'll try and voice out what I'm doing as much as possible. In case you lose me in the live session, just come back to the recording. So once we have validated, we have done our validation, then that means our data is good to be sent to the backend. And for this, remember, we do not want to hard code the backend URL. So for this, what we're going to do, and what we have to do is to introduce now the .env inside this project. So this .env is going to have the um, let's call it the API. base URL, and this by default is going to be um, let's just add a node env as well here, just in case we need it. Development. So this is HTTP, not HTTPS, but HTTP localhost port 3005. So the base URL for this, I will include it with the API/v1, so that over here we just need to add the path um, that comes after that. So for this, we just need to use now. Fetch is not the default fetch works, but then with React, we have other libraries that help you with the communication between systems. But to just get it to work, we're going to be using just the default fetch that comes with um, JavaScript. So fetch is going to take in a few things. First of all, it is the URL, and for this, so we're going to um, am I just frozen for a second there? This is going to be import dot now. I will use I will use I will set up constants so that I don't have to repeat that whole imports dot meta dot stuff. So what I'm going to do inside the source, I'll create a lib folder, and inside the lib, I will have constants similar to not TS, it's JS. Is it? This is a JS. It's a JS um, project. So there, what I'm going to do is to export const API URL equals, and this will be the import.meta.env dot API base URL. And just to test real quick, I will log this API URL before I try to use it over here. So log it, import it, make sure it's imported. Then for now, I can comment this real quick. So then what I'll do is undefined. So this is why I needed to do this. We have to prefix it with bit underscore API base URL bit underscore API base URL save that. Okay, so we see the URL over there. So what I'll do now, I will uncomment this. I know the API URL works just fine. Then slash, so our endpoint was auth register. This is going to have some mm, well down. Okay, some options. One of them being the method. The method is going to be post. Is where I like TypeScript, because TypeScript would have already started giving me some options over there. Method post body is going to be an object with these values. So how can I get them? I like this. Then copy them and just come here, paste. Oops. No. I will highlight them plus the commas, copy, and bring them here. Okay, that is going to be the body. So this fetch, if you hover over it, you can see that it returns a promise. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark this function as asynchronous, and we're going to try this, the fetch. Where does it start? Where does it end? It starts blue right here. Um, so try catch. Then const response is equals to await the fetch. So this is, I believe we had done this. In case there's an error, what we're going to do for now, we're just going to log. Actually, we're just going to set error. Add form error and just say something went wrong with the submission. I can maybe log the error just to see it if there is any. Okay. Then once we get this response, where does it start? Where does it end? Right here. We can get the data, res JSON equals we await res.json. Then for now we'll just log what comes inside res.json. Is there anything missing from this? We will know when we send this. So if I send this, has been blocked by cause. Okay, that's well and good. I go to the server, update the .env. No, update. Did I not set up cause? I did not set up cause. So we need to install the package. That is why I have one of these open. So ni cause. So we need cause, and we're going to bring in cause. Where? Right here. Up.use. Cause. Buddy, I am not suggesting cause. Import, I can't remember the cause is cause. Let's see whether the server throws any errors. Doesn't seem to. Then this will have origin. Origin will not be hard coded like that. We're going to add it in there as an env variable so that we can always change it. This is front-end URL. So I covered these when we were deploying in the video for deploying the video on YouTube. I'll look at the cards. So I'll link to it somewhere there. So front-end URL is going to be locally HTTP localhost port 5173. And let's restart the server so that it can pick the env. When it comes here, we set origin as process.env dot, what we call it, front-end URL. And for later, what is this key? Yeah, it's credentials. Credentials, is it normally a Boolean? I think it's a Boolean. So this is for later when we do the login process and we need the cookies. This needs to be set, the credentials to be true. So right now, origin is what is responsible for allowing us to send the the request from our client to our backend. So these will have sorted that, but we're going to need these credentials to work with cookies. So I think the server should be okay to receive requests now. I'll clear that console. Send. Post. Bad request. Okay, that's better. So you see, we had an error earlier with the cause. Actually, maybe I should see what that error was. At least wait. It was, yeah. So type error failed to fetch. So we can, where am I? We can go here instead of having the, so you just do error dot message or that will fail to fetch. That's okay. But will fail to fetch mean anything to users. Users don't know what fetching is. Yeah. So let's just have it as something went wrong with the form submission. Okay. So let's return our cause in the server. Oops. No. Let's return our cause and now we can send, but we're getting a 400 bad request. I don't know why. I hate getting 400 bad requests. Ah, wait, have I created a user? I think I created a user with my email. That's likely why we're getting that. If we check, I wasn't logging there. Yeah, let me log this error. So controllers auth register try catch. Let me log the error. So register error. So we can see it on here. And if I send this, we're going to see it, and it is going to be cannot destruct property password. Why? Well, that's not the error that was expected. Why not send in password book too? Let me see. Password is here. Oh, but you don't need to send confirm password is just for the client. Unless you have, yeah, which you should, yeah, let's actually just send it. You should have the confirm password as well in the bucket. The logic, the validation logic. As password undefined in the backend to what am I doing wrong? Oh, what am I doing wrong? We have the middleware. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but I'm going to inspect this and just log requested body. I will stop logging the error. And requested bodies or requested body is actually not huge. So let's log it. Send that. Undefined. Why are now this requested body undefined? Wasn't this working when I was sending with post one? Crazy. Okay, then that's like there's something wrong with my fetch. This is how to do it. Ah, damn it. I'm sending an object. This is not supposed to be an object. Uh, it is supposed to be a JSON string. So JSON dot stringify, then the object. So, uh, yeah, that should be it. Let me open that side by side. Ha, downloaded. What am I doing? What am I doing wrong? I missed it down there from the fetch. Maybe there's a setting that needs to be added. Let me go to Google. Um, yes, fetch post. Ah, headers. I'm missing headers. Damn it. Uh, I think that's the only thing. Let's set it. Perfect. Okay. So I was missing the headers. I was also not stringifying the uh, the object that is going to be sent within the uh, within the body. So I think we're good now. Let me comment that. So these res JSON should have gone up over here. The user has been successfully registered. Perfect. So the data is here. The user that has just been registered, the password is hashed. Now remember, we say that the client doesn't need this information. Uh, that the information for the user that has just been created, because it won't use it. So uh, just a second. Just a second. Right. Oh, sorry about that. So yeah, now the registration works. We get in the data in the backend. Uh, you can see from the response that it was successful, and we check our database. We should see this user. Had I not created a user yesterday with my email? Had I used, I'd created my WhatsApp. Okay. So ideally now I'm not supposed to be able to create a user with the same, anyway, with the same email. But remember when we were setting up our backend, we didn't really uh, make it like give us the complete information, like what is going wrong. So right now this has failed because of a few things. One, the username is the same, the email is the same, the phone number is the same. We had a constraint in the model that actually if we look at the log well, it doesn't. What does the log tell us? Am I not log? Oh, looking in the wrong place. Uh, I commented it, so let me uncomment it so that we can see the registration error now. And it's going to be something with the unique key constraint. So duplicate key error collection charity minds dot users index email group key email. So it's a very weird looking error, but there's a way you can parse. Normally stress the R so that there's a distinction between pass and parse. So you can parse this error so that it tells you exactly what the issue is. So you see dupe key, uh, then you look for email, and then you just know the issue is that the person has tried to sign up with the same email. Also, you have this key pattern email key value right here. And I believe the code when it's 1100, that's the duplicate duplicate key error code. I'm not sure of that 100%, don't quote me. Uh, but the MongoDB errors will have this kind of a structure that you can then read and know uh, what the issue is. So even if I change the email right now, we're still going to get the same error, and it's the phone number. So I come here and I change the phone number and I send, and I get that it's for username because of the constraints that we set at Mongoose level. So in the model, we said that those three things, the email, the phone, and the username, need to be unique. So the moment you set this constraint, then Mongoose will not go through with the creation of data if it finds that that key already, the value of that key already exists. So if the email already exists, Mongoose will be like, nope, I'm not going to go through with this. You give me something that is unique. So that is the registration process on the client. Now remember, this is just getting the app to work. Uh, what we're doing is not the best practice that we're following, but then you always start somewhere. So my advice is always don't try to optimize something before you can get it to work. You're going to overwhelm yourself with learning so much because optimization and being able to build better apps comes with learning more and more and more. And so if you wait to get to the point where you feel like I can now build really optimized applications or applications that follow the best practices, you will wait a very long time before you start building. So this is knowledge that is enough to get you started. You might not might you will need to add on to this knowledge for you to build production applications that are optimized, that follow best practices, uh, and that mostly best practices and optimizations. Yeah, because performance wise, and the optimization is not really performance per se. Uh, it is just code and organize it. So uh, optimization could be security wise as well in terms of data validation. Because remember, the backend doesn't have any data validation, but we can first get it to work and improve upon it. Right. So we're not going to be able to do login today, unfortunately. Time it's 9:40, 9:38. I'm still in the office. I need to get home. Uh, hope the rain has stopped. So login we shall do tomorrow. Now we had planned for just this week, but I don't think we will complete everything by tomorrow's session. So we can add Saturday. Saturday I have an event, but we can find time on Saturday for maybe some 2 hours, uh, and complete this. So yet again, go read about cookies, JWT. When we get to login, that is going to be the main thing. Because in terms of how the data moves from the app to the login endpoint, that is not going to change. It's just going to be that fetch. We're going to use that use state variable. Um, so the only thing that will be different now will be the introduction of the cookies and the JWT. And we're then going to see how we use those cookie values to in the JWT. So think of it this way, just to give you a primer. Cookies are, you all have IDs, right? The best example to use with this is that um, see, we're dealing with authentication, and authentication is about knowing who you are, right? You all carry IDs, and IDs are there for authenticating you or to give information about who you are. Now, the ID itself is not the authentication means, it is the data that is contained on the ID, right? And so cookies JWT, it is not a cookie that contains the identifying information. The identifying information is contained within the JWT, but this JWT is carried by the cookie. So in that example of the ID card, the card itself would be our cookie. And then the information is there, your ID number, your name, where you're born, your date of birth, where the ID was issued, when it was issued, those details on there will be our example of JWT. So it is the details that identify you, then the card carries the details. So it is not the cookie that identifies you, it is the JWT that is transported through or carried uh, through the cookie. So we're going to be creating a JWT that contains identifying information, the most important one being the ID of the user, because that is what the ID of the user is what is the unique identifier, right? And so if you want to know who somebody is, use their ID and you go into the database, check the person, the details of the person that has that ID. So that information is, what's the term? Is it encrypted? Um, JWT is encrypted. Well, that's certainly not hashed. Are they hashed or encrypted? Are JWTs hashed or encrypted? They are. Oh, they're signed. They are encrypted. Because with encryption, I believe the difference between encryption and hashing is that hashing is one way. Um, then encryption, you can use, if you can encrypt something, you can decrypt it. You just need to have what they're saying here, the key that was used, uh, the decryption key. So with JWTs, you're able to read the data that is contained in there, and they're not really like that secure. And so with what we're going to be doing, you don't really use them to store sensitive data. So you just use them as a means to, the most important bit is here, the signing. When a JWT is signed, because the server is going to be doing the signing of the JWT, it is only the server that knows that key. It is only the server that contains that key. And so a JWT coming into the server will be checked against that um, key for for its validity. So anybody can create a JWT that contains the same data as the JWTs that are created by your system. But then if they don't have the key that signs your JWTs and they send those JWTs to your server, then the validation will fail because the server will be like, yeah, I can see this JWT, but then it was not signed with the same key that is used on this server. So that is how JWTs are used for authentication. It's like they put a stamp, the server puts a stamp on what it has generated before sending it to the client. And when the client sends some JWT contained within cookies, then the server looks at the stamp and is like, or the signature, you know how you sign checks just to ensure to show the authenticity. And so if a check is signed by using a different signature other than the account holder's signature, then it's likely to bounce. Um, so there's the same concept that anybody can create a check, right? And they can say that this money is coming from this account to this account, but then the signature, right? The signature of that check is what is going to have some form of to show some form of validity. So read up, read up on that. Um, and because that is what we're going to be using for the login part, the authentication. So far, our system cannot tell who we are. I mean, the registration doesn't, the client has no idea because after registration, that's it, right? It just sends the data. This client has no knowledge of who we are. And that knowledge will only come from login, logging in. So that is what we're going to be doing next. We're going to be setting up this. Once the client sends the email and the password, then the server will receive those two, check against the database for the existence of an account with that email, then check. Remember yesterday when we covered bcrypt, there was the reverse. So the password is hashed. So it confirms the hashes of the two passwords, the one that is going to be entered here, whether it matches the hash that is in the database. And if that is true, then it will return the data of the user whose account has that email. Once that data is returned by the server, then the client is going to know who we are. So we haven't added authorization because even in the model for a user, we do not have a role. But that is something that is going to come after. So authorization comes after authentication. So you cannot authorize who you do not know. So you must know who it is first, who the user is first, then you can know whether they are authorized. Okay, so that's it with the tutorials today. Thank you for staying in the call, Lawrence and Hannah. Talk to you guys tomorrow. As always, in case of any questions, write them in the group. I will be sharing the recording hopefully before I leave. I don't know if it's going to be possible before I leave right now. If it's not, then I'll share it tomorrow in the morning, sometime in the morning. Right? So you can go through it and implement what you've done in your versions of the application. Then get ready for the login flow tomorrow. Right? Have a lovely night. Talk to you guys tomorrow.